Today is Friday, October 23rd, 2020, and today I'm thinking about women in the Bible. And it's kind of an interesting topic, one that I think about every once in a while, and I think it's something that has probably been removed from the Bible, I believe. I think that women's voices have probably been largely removed from the Bible just by the complete lack of female perspective. And because in the Gospels, it makes it clear that Jesus allowed women around, and Jesus had many women that were very important to him. And Jesus was definitely not sexist, but it seems like things have gotten corrupted. And another minor topic I'll be talking about today is Paul, and how I think that Paul is a phony and that Paul preached his own gospel. Paul didn't preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. He preached his own gospel, and he kind of just said whatever he wanted to say in the moment. And I think he was a big phony. And again, yeah, the very last book of Revelation talks about things being added and removed from the Bible. So I think that both have probably taken place. And I think that one thing that probably happened was a lot of different female perspectives were probably just taken out of the Bible. And one thing what I want to read before I look at the Paul stuff and make some comments about that, I want to read from Mark chapter 5. Women were often being healed by Jesus, and many of the interactions with Jesus are with women. Just things that come to mind right off the top of my head is Jesus talked to the woman at the well. And people even came up and were like, why are you talking to this lady? But I think that the Gospels show that Jesus didn't look down on women in a way that and there's some irony here, and it makes them big phonies, the way that a lot of Freemartins, I would say most people that talk down on women are actually Freemartins. So there's an extra layer of hypocrisy and irony to that aspect of it. Anyways, Mark chapter 5, starting at verse 21. And when Jesus passed over again by ship unto the other side, much people gathered unto him, and he was nigh unto the sea. And behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and when he saw him, he fell at his feet. So one thing I want to point out here is that you'll get a lot of phonies and liars and snakes coming through trying to make you doubt the name of Jesus. And one of the things that they love talking about is they love saying, oh, the letter J didn't exist. Well, then what about, who's this Jairus person? It's not like Jesus is the only name with a J in the Bible. So I think that's kind of a silly thing. Of course, the sound J existed. I don't know if the letter J existed, but to try to say, oh, J didn't exist and try to make you doubt the name Jesus, I think that's really dangerous. I believe his name is Jesus. Okay, continuing on. And besought him greatly, saying, My little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live. So I picked this just because it was really nice to see in the Bible a father or a dad's love for his daughter. And it's interesting that they call her little daughter, and we'll find out later that she's 12 years old. And so there's some things that you could say about that, about how there's certain religions out there that try to pretend like everybody was a pedo back in the day, but that's clearly not the case. 12-year-old girl they're calling little daughter. I pray thee, come and lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live. And Jesus went with him, and much people followed him, and thronged him. And a certain woman, which had an issue of blood 12 years. So I just want to stop here. Jesus is going to heal a little girl, and we get another story of Jesus healing another woman right here in the same part. And I love, this is one of the greatest healings just because of this next part right here, because it's very relatable today. And had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse. This woman, she had such a bad health condition that she was spending all of her money and seeing every specialist out there that they had at the time to try to get this cured, and nobody could cure her. When she had heard of Jesus, came in the press behind, and touched his garment. For she said, If I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned about him in the press and said, Who touched my clothes? I like this part. And his disciples said unto him, Thou seest the multitude thronging thee, and sayest thou, Who touched me? They're just like, you're really going to ask who touched you? Because there was such a huge crowd around them. It's just things like this that really set the stage, and they allow me to visualize what was happening. I like things like that. And he looked round about to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him, and told him all the truth. And he said unto her, Daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace, and be whole of thy plague. And so there are many instances of the Bible of, when I just think of examples of people showing great faith, a lot of times it's women that come to mind. That example right there, you can think of washing Jesus's feet with the expensive incense or the oil with all the scent in it. And also the woman who Jesus called a dog. There's many instances of women in the Bible showing great faith. While he yet spake, there came from the ruler of the synagogue's house certain which said, Thy daughter is dead. Why troublest thou the master any further? They're like, oh, your daughter's dead. Why are you still bugging Jesus? As soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he saith unto the ruler of the synagogue, Be not afraid, only believe. And he suffered no man to follow him, save Peter and James and John, the brother of James. And he cometh to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and seeth the tumult, and them that wept and wailed greatly. And when he was come in, he saith unto them, Why make ye this ado and weep? The damsel is not dead, but sleepeth. And I think that this is probably where they get ideas for like Sleeping Beauty, probably just taken straight from this. And they laughed him to scorn. But when he had put them all out, he taketh the father and the mother of the damsel, and them that were with him, and entereth in where the damsel was lying. And straightway the damsel arose and walked, for she was of the age 12 years. And they were astonished with a great astonishment. And he charged them straitly that no man should know it. There's many instances of Jesus healing people and say, Don't tell anybody that I did this. So he was very humble in that. And I also liked here how, and commanded that something should be given to her to eat. Jesus was thinking of her well-being first and foremost. Everybody was sitting there astonished that he had raised her from the dead, and Jesus is saying, Can you get her something to eat? I just connected with that and thought it was really kind, and it showed that he was really caring about her. Okay, so that's mostly it. I just want to go through this because people ask me sometimes about Paul. I've done a video on Paul before. I'm not the only person to ever come out here and say, I don't like Paul. I think he's a snake. There's many people out there that have really put it out very clearly for anyone to see that a lot of what Paul said is very questionable. However, one thing that I don't hear people bring up a lot, and that's why I'll put it here, is it seems that Paul is the author of this notion of women somehow being beneath men. And it seems that Paul is the one who was telling women can't speak. And I think that everybody knows that that's not right. Just because you're born a woman doesn't mean that you're lesser somehow. And I think that there's an incredible amount of irony and hypocrisy in the fact that most of the people that talk about this stuff are Freemartins. They're inverted. And I guess I'll just tell one little story here, because these verses with this type of spirit, there's one about women submit to your husband type thing, and Red Lodge inverts, they love that stuff, and they love saying that stuff at their weddings, like as a part of their vows. And it's really awkward and uncomfortable for Blue Lodgers that are there hearing all this stuff. It's like people get these physical reactions when they hear stuff like, women submit to your husbands. Blue Lodgers just go crazy when they hear stuff like that. But anyways, I just think that the irony is thick and the hypocrisy is thick, that these people are all phony play pretenders, and there's these aggressive castrati, swires, that are nodding along. Oh, yes, I'll submit to my husband, but you know that when they get home, who really wears the pants in those relationships is almost always the strat anyways. So It's just all a big production. There's more than one of these verses that put women kind of in a lesser role, and I don't support any of that stuff. You hear Christian people talk in this manner, and they're almost always Freemartins, and even heard some Christian truthers before talk about, oh yeah, it'd be great if we could all get together and live in a community, but we would have to separate the men and the women, and the women would have to keep quiet. I've heard truthers say that before. It's kind of interesting. That's mostly it. Just, I'm thinking about how it seems like in the Bible, women were kind of taken out, and it seems like some sexist stuff was added in that I don't think Jesus would agree with. I think it goes against the golden rule. Does anyone want to be told that they need to be silenced because of the way that they were born? Nobody wants to be treated like that, so why would you treat other people like that? It just directly goes against the golden rule. And there's just this kind of interesting idea of the fact that we're ruled over by women and children, and 99.999% of the time, the person who is telling a woman to be quiet is a Freemartin. So I think it's incredibly hypocritical. As for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. O my people, they which lead thee cause thee to err, and destroy the way of thy paths. Eunuchs born in their mother's womb. Ask ye now, and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir. And so I just think it's important that women don't feel lesser, because in these days, most people that are going to be saved today are actually women. And it's something that I can tell that women get kind of the short end of the stick. Even today, people try to pretend like it's better today, but not really. And then there's all this confusion with almost everybody out there that's pretending to be a woman and fighting for women rights aren't actually women, and they're swire boys, and it's just all so mixed up and confused these days. And I think it's one of those things that people just, you should be blind to people's sex, and even to the intersex stuff. It really shouldn't matter. You should just take every individual for what they are. These labels that we attach to ourselves, where we were born, doesn't matter. What tribe you're a part of, it doesn't matter. We're all followers of Jesus Christ, and it's going to be different too. I think I have some more verses in here that kind of go over more, but I've said mostly everything that I want to say. I guess just the final thing is, we don't know how this whole being a man, being a woman thing is going to work when we get to heaven, because Jesus told us that we don't marry in heaven. And there's some clues that we're going to be more like angels in heaven. And how does our glorified body work? I don't know. Interesting things. But I just felt the need today to kind of speak out for women, and that I still see a lot of people talk down on women, and they try to pretend like it's biblical to talk down on women. But I don't think that stuff is what Jesus told us to do. I think it's something that just people made up. Phonies. And a lot of them are probably wolves. Maybe some of them had good intentions, but it didn't come out right. You know, people aren't infallible. I think that this is just something about the Bible. I think the Bible is true, and I think that the Bible is perfect, and that everything is there that we need. But these people that cling to these kind of sexist things in the New Testament, it's not like they listen to every little law out of Leviticus. So clearly these people don't believe that every little word in the Bible means that you need to apply that to your life. So that's kind of how I feel about the letters. I'm like, well, these are just letters that people who are definitely not Jesus wrote these letters. So I don't think that those people are perfect. I think that Jesus Christ's words are the most important. And why I think these things are still in the Bible, I think it's just because God expects us to think critically and to use our discernment. And I think that he expects us to know what's important. Jesus Christ is the most important. just words that people said in letters to one another, I don't think that carries the same weight as the words of Jesus Christ. And I don't think Jesus is sexist. So, all right, that's it for this video. God bless everyone.